So for the first project, we're going to be setting our cameras on different modes, starting with shutter priority. So we're going to use a tripod, set up our camera, and we're going to look for something that is going to be consistently moving. My visual example here is maybe not the best. It's not a really great composition, and it's just a person waving their arms. So please try to find something more interesting, perhaps the L train, cars driving down the road, something that is consistently like spinning or has a consistent speed that you can photograph, and try to make a more interesting composition. But we're going to start with a slow shutter speed, which will give us some blur to the object that's moving. We're going to slowly step a little faster and a little faster until we are able to freeze all the motion. In all the images, the background, or whatever is not moving, should remain sharp. And so that's why you need to use a tripod, because at a slower shutter speed, you're going to end up with camera shake. So that's part one. Here's some student examples of that, like a motorcycle going down the road, fast then slow. You can see a major difference in those. A metro train. Now, ideally, try to get something that is not, well, how do I say it the right way? We're at a train station, so the train could actually be stopped in this photo. So try not to, photograph something at a place where it would stop, so that we know that it's actually moving fairly fast when you took the picture. Skateboard jumping. This one's hair being whipped back over their head. Shaking their head back and forth. This is someone throwing pillows onto a couch, and you can't really see, but the pillow is hitting the couch and then falling down. And then in this image, the pillow is frozen midair. Someone waving their hand, again, maybe not the best, because it could be just holding your hand still versus waving it. This is Jenga blocks falling down. This is, I believe, the fast shutter speed, so things are sort of frozen as they're still falling, versus a long exposure where the tower was standing and then it fell mid-capture. So you can see some movement in some of them. Swing set. Again, skateboard. Another student waving their hands. Or walking past the camera. And a couple dancing. Car driving by. Alright, the second part is going to be changing your aperture to control your depth of field. So we're going to be using a large aperture number and a small aperture number, which are opposites when you think about it. But the large number gives you a small opening, gives you more depth of field. A small number gives you a large opening, which gives you shallower depth of field. For any of these pictures, please try not to use a flash. So here's an example in the hallway of the Fine Art building with a small aperture, which gives a less depth of field, and then progressively going. That's actually wrong. This is the most depth of field because the door behind is fairly sharp, although still a little blurry. And then this is more blurry in the background, and then the most blurry in the background. So here's some student examples. Looking particularly at what's outside the window, you'll see a huge difference here. Flowers that are, I believe, sharper, and then more blurry background. It's really the background where you see the big change. So this one is the opposite. The background's more sharp here and less sharp there. I'm going to guess that this is a shallow depth of field. No, yeah, that's the shallower depth of field. That's the more depth of field. I'm going to say more depth of field and shallower depth of field. Yep. I think you can see the example or get the idea from these just switching between the two of having a really shallow depth of field versus a lot of depth of field. So a lot of portraits come out really nicely with a shallow depth of field, so the background goes a little blurry. Okay, the third part is foreshortening. So we're going to photograph the same subject, and this needs to be a portrait, approximately head and shoulders within, some approximate range, and we're going to try and compose the same picture. First, up close at 18 millimeters, or as wide as your lens will go. Then second at a mid-distance with a mid-zoom, and third at a far distance with a greater zoom. So the idea is we're composing the same picture, but we're really looking at how the background changes. And you can even see some of the facial features change, going from slightly wide angle, distorted, to kind of flattening out. So here's 1, 2, and 3. So this is the wide angle, which you can kind of tell by the face, but it's also that you see so much more background. So the key with this is to make sure that your subject isn't standing right against a wall. There needs to be a good 5 or 10 feet of distance between them and whatever's in the background so that you can really see that change. But approximately the head and shoulder shot stays close to the same size, but the background is what really changes throughout these. And then 1, 2, and 3. And with this one, the depth of field really changed as we zoomed in. But again, the model took up about the same amount of space in the frame. 1, 2, 3. This one's a lot harder because the model is so much more similar in space. But this one, you can tell by the face, is the wider angle. So this would be the most zoomed in. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, and then the fourth part is to do vantage point, photographing the same subject, ideally a model, a person, at eye level, above, and then below. And I would call that like bird's eye view, worm's eye view versus equal in level. And the idea with this is you can say different things about a person or subject that you're photographing by looking down on them, literally being higher than them, lower than them, looking up to them, kind of like you're praising them, or they're almost like a godlike figure, versus being equal with them, being eye level. So this is from above, and then this one's from below. And what I would say is you could either have someone sit on something so they're somewhat elevated, but you'd be able to be standing taller than them, or in this case, the model kind of crouched down a little bit so that the photographer could just lay on the ground and then easily stand over them. And then here's again above, eye level, and below. Above, eye level, below. I think that looks like eye level, below, above. Above, eye level, below. Above, eye level, below. All right, and then for the project, you're going to turn in one image. This is actually not including everything that I should here, but there's going to be one image of blurry motion, one image of frozen motion, one image of a large depth of field, one image of a small depth of field, then one image with a wide angle of view, medium zoom, and then most zoomed in, and then you're above eye level and below. And that should do it.